It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's Wednesday. Deal with it. Gary, how are you?
I want a sip of coffee here.
All right. It's radio coffee, so
it's gonna be
take your time.
It's gonna be a coffee morning.
Coffee. There's gonna be coffee.
That is strong. Listen to how low it made my voice.
That's gonna be on the. We'll make a big pot of it. Gary will have 2 cups, please.
I may, because I'm like jet lagged. My schedule got changed yesterday, a doctor appointment, and moved on, and it just destroyed my entire day. And I'm like, I'm got a couple hours sleep, and I'm like jet lagged.
Yeah.
It's like any change in, this, when you get into that routine, when you work, everybody knows this who works overnights, that your schedule gets changed at all during the day, and it just completely messes up your brain.
Well, I guess I've adjusted to it because mine's been that way for pretty much 27 years.
Yeah, I have to stick to the exact routine, or it just, I for some reason, I'm like,
in fact, I'm jet lagged because I got almost 9 hours of sleep yesterday.
So that'll do it to you.
It's like,
well, you don't know.
I average around 4 to 5 a day.
I had, because my doctor's office called me up and woke me up, and so I got, let me see, 3. I got 5, and normally I'll get about 7 or 8 on the weekend. Though on the weekend I'll go to, because I skip. People that don't know, I sleep twice a day. I come home from the show, and I go to sleep, and then when I normally wake up somewhere between 9 and 9:30 or 10, so I get 3 to 3.5 to 4 hours, and so it's sort of like 4 hours, and then I go back to sleep around 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and sleep till 10. On weekends, like Friday night, I'll skip the afternoon nap, and by 11 o'clock I'm exhausted, or 10 o'clock, and I'll fall asleep and sleep 8-10 hours, and I wake up and I'm jet lagged. It's like, oh, God.
Yeah, for sure.
But besides that, everything is good. Everything is good. A bunch of things to talk about, starting with the bridge collapse in Baltimore, the Francis Scott Key bridge. You asked the question yesterday, and you sort of called it, because we were wondering, how, what are the odds? Because we didn't see any vehicles, pedestrian vehicles. We saw the worker vehicles, apparently fixing potholes is what they were fixing. And we were like, wow. And it's like that tractor trailer crossed.
Yeah, in fact, if you go back far enough in the video, a few more minutes, we had been watching roughly a 6-minute video from the Port of Baltimore live feed. And it's a live cam that's been streaming for quite some time. And we saw 6 minutes, and we went back, and in that 6 minutes, you could see traffic moving at the rate that you would expect for roughly, 1:30 in the morning. And then we saw a number of tractor trailers go by. And then at the point where the ship gets closer to the bridge, right before making contact, in those last moments, the traffic is gone, all but those stationary construction vehicles.
Yep.
And that was interesting to us. We thought, well, that's either a coincidence, or we asked the question a few times. I thought, well, if they were, because as word started getting out that the ship had lost power, then we went back and we were reviewing it, the lights going on and off. And if they were aware of a problem, it would make sense that the ship would try to send some kind of signal to anyone and everyone. And if they were able to stop traffic, and some workers were at the bridges or the bridge entrances and were able to do that.
And I heard also the mayor said some law enforcement also was there.
Right.
So.
And so that saved lives.
But you think about it, I watched it again, unless they cut in, and this was the live stream, so they didn't cut in. It was like 30 seconds after that last truck got, past the truss, and past that one structural column that stayed there.
Right.
It's like 30 seconds when he passes when the truck hit, or when the ship hit.
I was doing the math on the rate of speed of the truck and roughly where the truck was, and then the time between where the truck goes out of the frame, out of the point of view of the camera, and where the bridge starts to collapse. And I said to myself, just based on my math, if that driver didn't hit the brakes for some reason, if he didn't slow down or she didn't slow down, then they made it across just in time, and that turned out to be the case.
Yeah, that was, and then and because we had said, last night we said we don't see any headlights except the stationary ones. We didn't see anything moving, and that seems to be the case. That no vehicles, no pedestrian vehicles went in. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's thinking. You think to yourself, "Oh, I'm going in to fill in some potholes on a bridge."
Yeah, right. I mean,
wow.
it was likely a typical night for a crew like that. It's quite unfortunate. They have now called the search off for the remaining 6 people who they are saying likely now did not survive, and it was quite unfortunate. One of the things that was brought up by the Wall Street Journal in a piece just a few hours ago. That will be part of the investigation, likely, and that is the question as to whether the fuel on the ship that powered the ship was dirty fuel, and that would cause a number of problems. Might cause, I don't know, stalling. I mean, we could get into it in terms of engineers with how it all works. There are smaller generators on these ships. The crew is, like we said, is usually somewhere between like 15 and 20 people. It turns out it was 22 people on board the ship, but your backup generators, your smaller generators, don't have the power, of course, to power what you need. They did say that the operators of the ship were doing everything that they could do in those last moments to reverse and. I'm wondering, we were looking at it, and was it Breitbart that did the article and the assessment of the smoke coming out in those last moments that you could see above the ship?
Yes.
Is an indication that that engine, and quite possibly, it could be that engine was under a heavy load, was really trying hard. And that lines up with what we have learned about the crew on that ship working really hard to reverse that. And I can't possibly imagine, and now those the families of those workers, of course, dealing with these losses now, and Baltimore in the Northeast now dealing with the question of a bridge that they started construction on this bridge in the summer of '72 and they finished it in spring of '77, so just under 5 years. And it was spring of '72, and they finished it in just under 5 years, in early '77. So you get to the question of what it takes to now, with technology, it's possible that they could rebuild a bridge like this. It would take some time. Obviously, the design would be different. That's just not necessarily to improve. Some engineers, I read a number of articles during the day yesterday about the engineers who assessed it and said, it wasn't really a design flaw. And so you look at it, if a ship that big was going to hit one of the main support structures, then most bridges would have a catastrophic failure. But so now you look at the cost in the mid-70s, $100 million. You can basically, I did the math on the inflation. Biden promising to use federal money to rebuild the whole thing. We'll see where that goes, but it is a massive, chunk of infrastructure in moving goods in and out of a port. So it may have bipartisan support in getting money to rebuild this bridge. But then, it would cost, it could be, who knows how much. I mean, if just adjusted for inflation, 100 million would be 700 million, 600, 700 million, somewhere in that range. But that's not when we do government math, then it's going to, it's going to be compounding. And so you could get to billions of dollars easily on the cost of it. Then beyond that, do they rebuild a bridge? One of the considerations for building the Francis Scott Key Bridge when they started to plan the building was to actually do a couple of tunnels instead, go under the water, not over it. And is that feasible now, given the layout, given the way that the river flows? Given there are a number of considerations.
If you're talking about, you're talking about the tunnel in Boston, for example, and the cost overruns there.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're going to do tunnels just because you're not going to pay 20 times more to build a tunnel than to build a bridge with the proper structural improvements, which would be the column, the bridge fenders,
the fenders,
the fenders, plus the. I did a lot of reading yesterday and went back because I'd mentioned yesterday because I've not been on it. All my friends that lived down in Tampa have been, the Tampa Skyway Bridge.
Yeah.
Well, in 1980, a freighter hit into one of the old bridges.
Right.
And it didn't have the proper blockage, and it just destroyed the entire bridge. There's a great picture, and in fact, I put it on my Twitter page, X whatever it is, and you see the car 14 inches from going over.
Mm-hmm.
That person, guy, whatever, I think it was a guy, was lucky that day. So when they built the new one, you see for example, how the column is on an island and there's a big buffer. That's only part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, and that angles out, the base of it angles out tremendously. And also they have other barriers that are underwater because they have a channel in the port of Tampa too, because Tampa Bay is not deep at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have, they keep it like at 47 feet deep, but they've got things where if it's heading to the bridge, underwater will stop it before it even comes close to hitting the fender, the bridge fender.
Right.
And so you saw how they've got that blocked off all over the place because I was reading up on the Port of Tampa, and I claim ignorance. I didn't know how fast they're growing and how not they're only bringing in just cruise ships, but the number of cargo ships now going in. And you actually go online and you can see they're advertising, we're going to be, we are, and, we're going to be the place to go. And I think what they're saying is we're Florida. We're not California. We're not the Northeast. And you've got to consider, us. And I think, you talk about shipping companies, they might.
Well, it actually is consideration and has been. Things changed when there was when you had the labor dispute out in the Port of Los Angeles. Yep. That also changed everything. They rerouted at that time. They were trying to reroute going to the Texas ports, going to Savannah, Georgia, going to New York. And the reason they wanted that workaround is because it just became counterproductive. And when they realized that, then beyond that was really just trying to fix more of a short-term problem. But then there was long-term consideration almost immediately for expanding the number of ports in the U.S. so that you're not relying heavily and that global commerce, can happen without being impaired by one shutdown on one port, which would include, a storm in the Gulf or a storm on any of those shores or labor disputes or whatever it might be. It was just taking way too much time and became counterproductive. And now it was to the point, by the way, that they were bringing things in so fast that the empty containers, that they would,
where was it?
To
in Florida,
in Texas, Georgia, and in New York. Right. This was happening so fast at such a quick pace that the empty containers were stacking up pretty quickly. And they really weren't worried about it. You see now, in fact, I have a family member who's involved in it. Those containers have been repurposed for other structures and everything else. That's still a booming business now. And the fact is that commerce needs to get things this is an economy the size of ours, and there is no other economy the size of ours. And the way we consume, the demand is there to open as many ports as you can. And, this port in Baltimore is one of the busiest in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be a turnaround solution here, but it's not going to be a quick one.
86690 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It's not always easy to spring back from the harsh days of winter to warmer months ahead. From de-icing chemicals to hidden debris underneath snow and ice, winter conditions can do serious damage to your truck. Here's a must-do maintenance check to help you minimize downtime and stay rolling. Have your wheel alignment checked to set you up for a safer and smoother ride. Driving with incorrect wheel alignment can result in reduced performance, tread wear, and steering issues. While you're at it, make sure your tires are properly inflated based on the load you're hauling. Underinflated tires can impact your fuel economy and result in blowouts.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We get to a ton of stuff we weren't able to get to yesterday because we had the breaking news of the bridge collapse, and thanks to all the nice comments that we got from people about that coverage, and thanks for a lot of response to what we were talking about yesterday at this time when we got quite furious, and not going to do it again today. I'm just... but we're not going to stop mentioning it, that the president and the administration and Republicans did. Now, I know the bridge collapse dominated the news yesterday, but the fact is this administration has betrayed and abandoned American hostages in Israel.
Yep.
And you see where pro-Palestinian protesters were protesting the president, and he goes, well, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, no.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right.
Unbelievable. We had a caller that said, this is treason. Well, it's not technically treason, but it legally, but it feels like treason because when you look at that, abandoning and betraying our American hostages by abstaining from that UN vote, one of the most reprehensible things, the most reprehensible thing I've ever seen from a president.
Yep, and on top of that, the continued support directly for Hamas.
Yep. Unbelievable. And you combine that with the border, and you combine that with the energy policy and the electric vehicles and everything else, and you can only look at it that the goal of the Democrats is to destroy the United States of America and not back the troops, not back citizens.
Right.
Nothing. They don't value anything about the United States.
Right. And it's there's no way around that.
Nope.
And it is exactly where, of course, they were going to land. This is and they're not done yet.
No, not at all.
Now you have to consider the possibility of Biden being in the White House for 4 more years. But here's the reality as well. Even if Trump wins, the radicals aren't near done. We said this in the end of the Obama years. Whoever the next president is one thing. If it's a Republican, that's one thing. But the Democrats aren't done. The radical on the far left is just now getting started.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly. on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Wanted to address this. You know, this is one of the things that, I mean, if you pay a lot of attention to the news, you know about it, but most people have no idea who Ronna McDaniel is.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They have no idea.
Right.
You know, it's the best headline I saw yesterday in a story, though, was MSNBC and NBC afraid of Mitt Romney's niece.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my gosh. But I think it was Jeffrey Blahar from National Review wrote this, and he just said, furthermore, the line they affect to draw here is entirely artificial, a transparent case of selectively holding the others to standards you constantly excuse when those of your own tribe are on trial. He goes, I don't particularly mind the fact that Jen Psaki literally negotiated her NBC contributor gig while still working as Joe Biden's press secretary. I do mind that John Brennan went from Obama's Central Intelligence Agency, where he set up the Crossfire Hurricane FBI investigations, and we pounded him for that, into the Trump campaign purported Russia collusion directly to NBC, MSNBC, where he was the loudest and most influential voice, flogging the Steele dossier and the Russian hoax, for which he has paid zero professional price. Goes, Al Sharpton, where does anyone even begin?
Yeah, right.
And he said the hypocrisy is not confined to NBC either. It's widespread across media networks. Terry McAuliffe went from proudly calling 2000, 2004, 2006 all stolen elections, oftentimes in his capacity as the head of the Democratic National Committee.
Yeah.
Curiously enough, he then went to being a paid CNN contributor in 2019.
No.
By the way, karma, he had a worse 2021 than many.
Yeah, well.
Goes, in an earlier era, George Stephanopoulos moved immediately from being one of Bill Clinton's most gleeful, vicious, and amoral hatchet men. His particular specialty was quelling Clinton's bimbo eruptions, to ABC News, swiftly becoming the host of This Week and Good Morning America. He truly did awful things to the reputations of multiple women merely because they had the misfortune to be bedded or allegedly raped by his boss. But his friends don't hold that against him. They understand it was just part of the job that you see. Now, what she worked for them for 2 days, and look, she probably wouldn't have ended up like a Michael Steele.
Yeah,
as we talk about the former head of the RNC, who used to have conservative viewpoints and has none now.
Right.
And you just wonder, you go, well, what happened? And as you said yesterday, well, he became head of the RNC because it was a paid position.
That was it.
People will take paid positions and,
And by the way, that's on the RNC. You and I don't think we talked about that part of it on the air. My comment in our pre-show meeting yesterday, you had, what in the world happened to Michael Steele? And it's, in my opinion, I think it's a great possibility that he never was a true conservative. You don't change like that the way that he has done, and you certainly don't do it later in life when you're. I can't say he's past his prime. Is that illegal, or do I get fired for that? Or
no.
Can I say Ronna McDaniel's past her prime?
No,
Can I say Ronna McDaniel
no.
never had a prime?
No.
Oh,
you can only say that about a man.
Okay. So I could say, because I won't make the case that Ronna McDaniel is past her prime if she never had a prime.
That's right.
You have to have one first to get past it. So the point with Steele is, I think, twofold. I think I'm convinced he never was a real conservative, and I think too it's indicative of many problems with the RNC. How many times have we seen now, Republicans, moving further and further to the left, and the party itself and party leadership or the head of the RNC, now Ronna McDaniel didn't even wait until she was gone. At least Michael Steele waited till he was gone to turn. But those are the things that you look at, and I think to myself, well, if I'm, on the committee selecting or voting for, the head of the RNC, if I'm involved in the process at all, it has to be somebody who clearly has, in my opinion, I would want somebody who has conservative values, and I'm going to have to hear them talk with conviction, not just answer questions, not just it's going to have to be somebody that I believe is vetted. Now, again, I've said this, and it applies here. When people talk, about things like this, show me that unicorn. There is no unicorn, but there are conservatives out there that would be much better than Steele, Ronna McDaniel, and I think the current leadership right now, I think, we'll see where they go, but I think it was imperative that Donald Trump has somebody on board like Laura Trump, to
right. But
at least in
this day and age,
position.
In this day and age, I mean, look at Newt Gingrich. He's still viewed as the ultimate conservative. He would have abandoned conservatism, as we saw with climate change.
He was doing it
in 2 seconds. Remember,
he was doing it.
Remember when he went after Mitt Romney, for his business activity. Remember that guy who went up to Newt Gingrich and said, "What the hell happened to you?"
Right.
So you've got all the wind. It's very tough to find people that are absolutely consistent. Trump isn't consistent.
Right.
Trump's not a conservative. He's a moderate. And so it's when you're a moderate, I mean, you can move. Look at the crap. Look at all the people that fed into the BS of Robert Kennedy Jr. We never did.
Yeah.
We'll talk about his vice presidential
they labeled
pick.
him based on nothing, based on a couple of things that he said in passing, not who he actually is.
Well, not the positions he's taking now. I don't buy any of them because I know his history, and then now he's completely with his, and we'll get to his vice presidential pick here in a little bit. But now the Democratic Party is absolutely livid because she's as far left as you can get, and so you're seeing the truth of Robert Kennedy Jr. come out. I don't believe a thing he says. People say, "Well, he says this." I don't care. I don't believe him.
Yeah,
I don't believe him at all on it. But look, what's happening at MSNBC and NBC, because when Chuck Todd comes out and says, we're looking for truth tellers, and Jen Psaki, we're looking for people that tell the truth, and I tell the truth. Well, that's a lie right there, because we know that she does not tell the truth. So it gets to be, you sit and you say, why? Well, why is very simple. They cannot debate the issues, and they're afraid with even someone who I would view as a moderate, McDaniel, for example, they view, and she's not particularly strong or authoritative in her presentation, that I would think they'd go, bring her in because we can get her. And they said, no, they don't want any discussion on the issues at all, none, because they believe they'll lose. Look, this is I'll read this is on Chris Cuomo. He had Geraldo Rivera on. Okay, both liberals.
Yeah, right.
And he said, look, I have no beef, but it was okay for you, Mika and Joe Scarborough, to have Trump on all the time to talk to him about what questions to ask, right? When it was working for you when he was running, right? When you guys are all pals, that was okay, right? You have no problem with that, right? Just because you went bad on him when it became convenient because you work at a lefty outlet, that is okay. Now you can be high-minded about it, right? The hypocrisy reeks. Then he went to Geraldo, and Geraldo's, one of his first words were screw them. He goes, the whole idea is that they were hiring her to be the ultimate insider, what actually goes on. And here she gets washed, or she gets drowned by this tsunami of pretentious, and he says the word BS, which is why I can't actually play the audio cut. Really, all of these people have a stick up their behind. How dare they? Rivera took on McDaniel's most prominent naysayers, Chuck Todd and Mika. When did she become management? When did she become, the arbiter of who got hired and who doesn't get hired? Well, you'd have to ask Joe.
Yeah.
And Chuck Todd, I don't remember his 9 years at Meet the Press as being exactly triumphant. Oh, my God.
No.
Wow. Cuomo pointed out the bias at play in how their friends in the liberal media didn't have an issue with their buddy-buddy relationship with Trump during the 2016 election cycle. He goes, I was against them in the morning at CNN, and I still beat them twice, even with them having Trump on all the time. And you remember the tape that came out, Geraldo, of them in a break asking Trump about what questions to ask next and how they were going to do their next segment of a town hall. And nobody got upset about it. It was there and gone because all the reporters wanted to be on their show in the morning. But now they have standards about what's right and wrong. It's all advantage. It's all hypocrisy. That's coming from two people on the far left.
Right.
Right there.
Yeah.
I mean, they know it.
Yeah, of course.
But they don't hit the reason. The reason is, why you're calling it hypocrisy? No, because if you bring on, they're afraid of any conservative who can point out their lies and their disinformation and where they stand on the issues.
Yep.
They know their weakness.
Right. And it's, look, she, in my opinion, Ronna McDaniel belongs at MSNBC. Of course, they just don't want to have that because they don't want to have any discussion. It's just, look what they did to Joe Scarborough. Listen, here's what we'll do. Okay, someone's going to have to take one for the team. Mika. Okay, I guess I'll do that. All right. Okay, you guys, just you're going to have to influence them somehow. We don't know how, but just she goes, I know how. I know how.
What happened was they went and they said, look, we want to throw this by both of you. And Joe just said, I don't make any decisions. Ask Mika.
Yeah, exactly.
I do whatever Mika tells me. I have the same opinions as Mika.
The moment they started dating.
I don't have a brain of my own. And people may wonder, Gary, why do you say that? Well, because Joe Scarborough, it's funny because I think that everybody is my age and they're not. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of people that don't know that Joe Scarborough was even a Republican congressman from one of the most conservative districts in the United States, in northern Florida, in the panhandle of Florida, the seat that Matt Gaetz holds now out of Niceville, Florida.
Right.
That's Niceville, Fort Walton Beach, Navarre, where I used to live in Navarre. Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, I lived in Niceville for a month. So.
Right.
It was very nice.
And they kicked you out.
They said, you're not nice. You get out of here.
Nice. Get out.
But I went right from Niceville to Texas, just so you know.
Yeah.
I stayed there for a month as I was transitioning my move to Texas back in 80-something.
Yeah.
It's all a blur.
Right.
Well, it's when I took the train over the bridge. But, man, Biden, everything has to be about him, doesn't it? Every tragedy, he has to tell a lie.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Well, look, if you've done nothing but that kind of lying all your life, I guess it's the only thing you have.
Yeah. And after him abandoning and betraying American citizens held hostage,
right?
That's really a minor thing, that kind of lying, but it still has to be brought up. But what he did, what they did yesterday, and attempting to defend it was one of the most reprehensible things I've ever seen. Yeah. I've never seen not even Jimmy Carter. He tried to do something.
Yeah, right.
He wasn't strong in it, but they don't even care.
No,
they don't.
No, they don't care. Nope.
Jimmy Carter, I believe, cared that the hostages were there. This administration doesn't give a damn, and it's just it is so infuriating that it's America last. That's the thing. Trump promotes America first. Well, you're a nationalist xenophobe. Biden promotes America, and the Democrats promote America last across the board.
Yep.
And a lot of Americans like that. They want America last.
Yeah.
Who are these people? 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. By the way, anything that you want to say now about Biden? Again, his own staff gave you approval.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the one radio host out of North Carolina asking, does he have dementia? And she just got so incredulous.
Oh, man.
On it. And then answered another question, then just said, finished and said, thank you, goodbye.
Yep.
Boom. It was like
Gone.
they couldn't even respond. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But they're basically saying, so anything that you say, if people make fun of Joe, well, you shouldn't make fun of somebody who obviously has cognitive problems. They claim he doesn't have any. In fact, his cognitive abilities are better than yours.
Right. That's what they want you to believe.
That's what they say.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. So, Eric, I'm looking at this headline here. It's from the Federalist. I understand what they're saying, but it's like, why did McDaniel want to join the corrupt media? And when I see things like that, I'm like, well, because it's a job. It's a job that pays, and so you're always looking for a job that pays. But it made me, when I just read, and I haven't read the article yet. I'm sure it's a Federalist, so I'm sure they make great conservative points.
Mm-hmm.
And because they normally do. But I just started thinking how much I appreciate what we do here, and something that I look at my life, my professional life, and how I never wanted to do this ever.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows you have no idea what you have no idea what you could end up doing and absolutely loving, and saying to yourself, oh my God, I was made for doing this. I didn't know this. I had no idea. And you talk about, we've always talked about the fact that we would never want to be in television. And a lot of talk show hosts, they get into radio as they view that as a stepping stone to television. You and I never did.
Right.
I couldn't work doing commentary at a Fox News, a Newsmax, or any of those, because you don't have total control of your editorial content. There's too many other voices.
Well, and too many other considerations for the presentation. Our only consideration for our presentation is to bring what we believe, the facts. We bring the facts of the events or issues, and then we issue our opinion and analysis on it in what we believe is a thoughtful, honest approach. In television, it becomes something completely different on the presentation. And you and I have a lot of friends in television, and they are very good at what they do, and that's fine. It's great for them, not my thing. And it works twofold. We don't care to be in television, and television doesn't care to have us in television.
See how lucky we are?
See how lucky we are. But no, it just isn't. I am a radio guy through and through. I would say podcast falls in that realm, that audio realm. And, that's, for me, it is because I don't want it to change based on other elements. Now, I would say like video podcasts aren't always, that's not like television. We don't, our podcast isn't a video. It's just it's basically our show.
Thank God.
And and you mean I need to shave every day? No. So it's because I look at Rogan, and Rogan just rolls. He just boom, turn on the cameras, fire up the mics and let's go. And so, that's, I think, a good approach. But television is something very different. There is, and you and I have both done it before, and it's a very different consideration in the presentation because the way the television products are consumed. And since I was 18, I am full on a radio guy, a podcast guy, because I think for me, it is the presentation can remain honest. And I'm also grateful for this show of having what we have, where we have it, when we have it. We don't have a building filled with executives here at night, running up and down the hall and lawyers screaming at us like they do on The View between, in commercial breaks.
There's nobody for us to sexually harass.
There's nobody for us to harass at all. We don't, we go out in the break room and harass a cup of coffee every once in a while.
Well, for me, it's very simple. Mm-hmm. Editorial and creative control, totally.
Yeah.
And when you do this show, you're the host, you're the director, you're the writer, you're the researcher, you're everything. There is no, we don't have now we have Alan who contributes great stories for us every day.
Yeah.
But we don't have, remember we talked about Jay Leno, when Jay Leno did the Tonight Show and had, a zillion writers for, 10 minutes. And it was just like, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't. But it's the creative and editorial control, and you can present it in the way that you wish to present it. One of the things I would never want to do anymore, and it's funny because I did start out earlier in my career doing a couple of panel shows, but that's going back 30, 35 years ago. But the director of that show basically said, nothing's going to be edited. Go for it. I can do that. I can do that.
Right.
But to sit there and be and the person who was the moderator of the show was not throwing out any type of setup questions. It wasn't a narrative where every time they said something, I go, well, I disagree with your premise. Mm-hmm. Your premise is wrong. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that being on a panel discussion show on so much of the media. You have to accept the premise or the spin of the question. It's like, nope, don't want to do that anymore. Not going to get involved. And the first couple of shows I did, one panel discussion show in Illinois was great. I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it. But again, the moderator is the one that decides it. But you get up to the national media, it's garbage. And then, because they set the narrative and they set the agenda and they set the topic and everything else, and I don't want that. And I know somebody may ask, well, you're telling me that if somebody offered you $10 million to go on TV, you wouldn't go? That's not going to happen, and I've never done anything for money. I've never done anything. No. It's not doesn't mean that I haven't looked at jobs and said, nah, the situation doesn't fit, but I've never, and money might have been a part of it, but I've never accepted a job strictly for the money, ever. And I never will. I don't care about that. I know that if I do what I do and am entertaining and passionate and create unique content, that there'll always be a place for me somewhere, except for the fact I really can't think that way anymore because I'm past my retirement age.
Yeah. I'm always have the mindset of, all right, if I started something new, it would be a lifelong career. And the clock says, no, you're past that point. Look, I have done things strictly for money, and I made my apologies, but and I served my time. No, I was going down a completely different direction, a completely different path. All I'm saying is, I thought it was legal. I thought no. There's not. That's just a joke.
No,
real estate. For me,
I only sold the drugs for my own stash and to help out my buddies.
Oh, this wasn't drug related. So now people are going, what is Eric talking about?
By the way, I had I had, I said that I had a friend of mine who's dead of a crack overdose who actually said that to me.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and said that to me. And when I was just said, I got to go, I can't be around you anymore. And he said, but I'm not selling it to make money. I'm selling it just to have my own stash. I'm like, well, that's morality I can handle.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of snorts. It's like, what? It's like,
yeah.
But it got him. He lost everything. He lost his house. He lost his wife. He lost his kids, lost his job, and then eventually lost his life. And a very sad, great friend of mine, and addiction just got to him big time. But I was indicating that was me, not you. I wasn't accusing you of.
Yeah. Well, I have no comment. My lawyers have advised me not to comment. It's for me. It was, and I, my wife and I have been involved in real estate because our whole thought was, well, we can't rely on the jobs that we have and love if they're not going to get us to the point that we want to be financially.
Yeah.
We're going to have like many American families.
Well, I mean, in
have to have
a
side gig.
I'm relating to broadcasting. Of course, I did things for money, in other jobs, but I never took a media job based on the fact that I'm only doing. It's a situation that I will have no freedom or no control, but I want the money because it will put me over $1 million or something like that early on in my career. That's what I'm talking about. Not that you didn't. We all work for money. But is the money deciding factor, or does the fit have to be right in broadcasting? And that's what I'm more talking about, not whether you did stuff for money. Of course, we all do.
Right. I was making a separate point. And, I think that, that's where because, in fact, I wasn't doing radio for money. I had to do other things for money.
Yeah.
And that's the entire point of, being in a place now where I actually get paid a little bit of money to do what I love. And it is a great opportunity, but it's also part of the landscape of where this nation is. These conversations are happening where they used to only happen on talk radio. Now they're happening every day, everywhere. And it gets a little loose. The conversations quite often veer off into something, they go down rabbit holes. They go down, and it's like, even with people that you agree with, they go down these rabbit holes, and it's like, okay, we got to stay. I want the conversation. I want the conversation I'm going to be a part of to stay on point and to focus on the issues at hand, because I do believe, and I mentioned this yesterday when we were issuing our concerns with Biden and abandoning American hostages and being so pro-Hamas, we're at a critical crossroads. And you might say that to a certain degree with every election cycle. We're at a point where if this radical behavior, and I mean the radicalism across the board, which includes being pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Jew. It includes being pro-open border, which is pro-cartel, which is no problem with people dying of fentanyl overdoses and people being killed by illegals, and inflation that is burying American families and their buying power for a generation possibly. All of these things have to be fixed. If we don't fix them now, I'm afraid we never will.
Not only fix them, but we have to ensure that people that create the problem we don't put into elective office.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not just about solving the problems. Many of these problems would be solved if we didn't elect people that create the problems.
Right.
And, I think that's the one thing. And I still don't think the Republicans pound on that hard enough. And it's a very easy sell. You could add, as we always do, you could add our energy policy in the United States, which is, as we have said before, energy, economic, and national security suicide. Thank God they can't get control yet of state and private land. They haven't been able to do it because, as we brought to you yesterday, the United States in January produced more oil than any country in the history of the world in a year.
Yeah.
Over 13 million barrels.
Right.
And so we have, even with the federal government and the president with the edict and the promise to destroy and get rid of all fossil fuels, they can't do it. Well, reality also is going to dictate all of that. And thanks, a lot of people quoting what we've said, which is the Democrats' biggest enemy is not Republicans. It's reality.
It is.
Everything now is coming up and hitting reality. Border, reality. How do we make it more of a reality? Thank you, Governor Abbott. It's more of a reality to more people now in blue cities.
Yep.
There was a group of GOP politicians that I think sent a thank you letter to Abbott.
Yeah, right.
It's crediting him, saying, you were the one that made New York, now the state of New York, be much more serious about illegal immigration.
Yeah, and we said that. We said, I think you were one of the first I heard say it, that if not for Governor Abbott, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. And we've repeated that over and over again. Yeah. The actions of Governor Abbott have brought the border issue to a critical point, and it's not just a conversation you have in border states, because now every state is a border state. Every city is a border city. Every town is a border town.
And reality hit the American public with government spending, too.
Yep.
They know there's a relation. And I know that a lot of people are caught up in, well, what do I want? Do I want to borrow more money and put it on future generations? Do I want that combined with inflation? Or do I want inflation to go down and the government to stay out of all of this?
Right.
That's the debate there. But the fact is, reality is hitting. You can't stop it.
Right.
I don't get the calls anymore. You guys are making too much of the national debt, because everybody experienced the last 3 years of massive inflation caused by the debt.
Right. Yep. And we're here. This nation is being bombarded by the policies put in place that are all choices. These choices have to change.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, the president gets interrupted by pro-Hamas protesters. We'll have that back and forth. And, of course, he takes the pro-Hamas side again. We will get to that, no surprise. RFK Jr. Apparently has his vice presidential nominee as far left as you can get. Just amazing. And a bunch of different polls out there. Half of Democrat voters say the news in this country, half of Democrats, is being dictated by the Biden campaign.
Oh, really?
Yes. And we'll get to also Justice Breyer and his authoritarianism in the Supreme Court is the moral way to go.
Right.
That's what he communicated in that interview with Politico.
Right.
It's like, and he thinks he has a point. That's the thing. Maybe it's just we've gotten old, and we look at these people, and we used to look at them and say, well, they're intellectual giants, and you realize it doesn't matter whether they're on the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter whether they're arguing before the Supreme Court.
Radical is radical.
Yep. A lot of bogus lawyers out there.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. The president interrupted, I think, 2 different speeches he did yesterday. He was interrupted. He was giving a speech on affordable health care. And listen to this is almost a John Kerry moment.
Yeah, it is.
Here we go. Okay.
We can't take anything for granted. Just think back before the ACA. A patient with a heart disease, diabetes, or a child with asthma couldn't get coverage. Why? Because the insurance company considered those a pre-existing condition, allowed them to deny coverage.
What about the health care in Gaza?
Everybody deserves health care.
Hospitals in Gaza are being bombed. Do this in my guys tonight. I said no one here right now. You're complicit in Gaza. You're complicit in Gaza.
Be patient now. They have a point. We need to get a lot more care into the Gaza.
What a damn coward.
Just a coward through and through. This guy pretends to be a tough guy. He's pretended to be a tough guy all of his adult life. You're not tough. You're a coward. You'll lay down for anyone and everyone, even terrorists. You'll go out of your way to help them. You're a coward.
Yep.
We have a coward in the White House. Cut and run.
And a Democratic Party.
Yep.
That agrees with him.
Yep.
You have a major political party that is pro-Hamas, pro-rape, pro-murder, pro-terrorism.
Yep.
The most heinous things we have ever seen, probably in our lifetime, of a terrorist act, and the butchery is supported by the Democratic Party and this president.
He's a coward.
And you need to call it out bluntly. Every conservative needs to call it out bluntly.
Yep.
And it's just, as I've said, the and on top of that, the hostages, as we have said, betraying and abandoning American hostages with the abstention on the UN vote. That, as you saw, immediately changed. This is where John Kirby, the filthy liar that he is, we're doing this in the best interest of Israel. Mm-hmm. Well, Israel didn't think so.
No.
And by the way Hamas reacted, pulling out of the negotiations in Qatar, you created it. So don't give me this crap about, it was non-binding, so it didn't matter. Yeah, it did matter. They're out of the negotiations, and now what they're stating is, nope, ceasefire. And then we'll think about, after we have a ceasefire, then we'll think about, releasing the hostages.
Yeah.
These are American hostages there, and this president doesn't give a damn, and the Democratic Party doesn't give a damn about American hostages held by a terrorist group that killed and butchered Americans and Israelis.
Yep.
In some of the most horrific acts ever seen by mankind, and the Democratic Party supports it. And anybody who listens to the show knows we don't do over-the-top rhetoric.
No,
We've never done that.
It's very clear.
This isn't over the top. That's exactly what the Democratic Party and the president is communicating. And still, I haven't seen one Democrat. They might have got lost. Maybe Fetterman said something. I'm giving Fetterman, because of his previous statements, the benefit of the doubt on this one. Mm-hmm. I don't know another Democrat that is going after the president and saying what he did and what the United States did is one of the most reprehensible acts, betraying and abandoning American hostages and taking the pro-butcher side, the pro-butchering terrorist side is what he's doing.
Yep. Full stop. No way around it.
Nope.
And again, we can make the choice to end this. As a nation, we've always done the hardest things, but more and more in our later years, we've decided that hard things are too hard. Fighting terrorism is too hard. Let's just join them. Why don't we? Let's just completely not only roll over, we'll fund them. We'll make sure they have plenty of fund them. But by the way, we'll defund the police here at home, because enforcing laws is also too hard. It's too hard on the criminals. We're being too hard on criminals. That's the problem. We should let people from other countries come here, beat cops, and go free with no bail. That's a good idea. These are all the things, these right now are the cornerstones, the very foundation of the Democratic Party.
We've said it before. This is very simple. The United States is a modern Western democracy, and I'm talking about a constitutional republic under the umbrella of generalized democracies. I'm not saying that we're a direct democracy for the nitpickers out there. By the way, when I do the disclaimer, I don't get anybody complaining anymore.
Oh, I do.
Oh, do you? Good.
I filter all of them.
Good. Everybody complain to Eric.
Exactly.
Anything I say, complain to Eric. But we're a modern Western democracy, as is Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas, the Palestinian government, are terrorists. End of story.
Right.
The cover to attempt to convince Americans of their pro-Hamas side, their pro-terrorist side, their pro-killing Americans and Israelis side without any consequences is, well, if we have a two-state solution, which the Palestinians controlled by Hamas don't want.
Right.
They don't want it.
No.
And this needs to be pounded, and Republicans better be more vocal. They're still, I didn't hear enough blowback because, and I don't know why. You're talking about American hostages, and he just betrayed and abandoned them with it. Yeah. And I know they stated it, and Cruz stated it, and I think Tom Cotton did also, the stories out there. And maybe because, I'll give the benefit of the doubt, the bridge story dominated everything. Mm-hmm. But they need to pound this day in and day out that Biden and the Democrats don't care about American hostages. We've talked about this for the longest time, how there doesn't seem to be a concern when an American hostage is taken. You know, Wall Street Journal was out yesterday. The reporter, I guess, has been a year. And they said there's no consequences for taking American hostages.
Right.
There's none.
Right.
Whether it's Russia.
In fact, you're rewarded.
Yeah. You're rewarded if you take American hostages.
They know that they're going to get something from the American government. Yep. They know the American government under the Biden administration, under Democratic, with the Democratic Party in the White House, they know they're going to get what they want. Hamas is getting a lot more. Can you imagine? Hamas leadership is going, we don't have to do a thing. We don't have to. We're the ones We don't have to lay down. We have them right now on a string. We can do whatever we want to. We're controlling the most powerful office in the world right now. And it's true.
You know, the Biden administration reminds me, and it's a movie that's just a cult movie, but it's a great movie. It's a Christmas movie called 29th Street. Mm-hmm. They call it is it the Italian It's a Wonderful Life, I think, or something like that is what it's called. But I'll never forget where the father is talking to the one son who's a cop, and the other son says he wants to go to college and become a lawyer. And the father says, wow, this is going to be great. One of our sons can arrest them, and the other one can bail him out. And everybody keeps employed. And I'm thinking to myself, that's exactly what's going on here. Think about what the United States is doing. The United States is enabling Iran to fund all of these terrorist groups, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and other Islamic fundamentalist groups around the world. And we know that. There's no doubt about it. We know that.
Right.
And at the same time, we're giving aid to Israel at the same time where the president has now decided to give aid to Hamas. Well, no, it's going to the Palestinian people. There is no Palestinian people.
No.
The Palestinian people are controlled by Hamas. There is no separate Palestinian people.
Right.
I'm not saying the Palestinian people don't exist. They exist, but they aren't a form of government that controls anything in that area.
Right.
It's all Hamas, and everybody knows it. So we know that the American aid will go to Hamas to help fight Israel, and it's like an entire circle that, well, the United States is involved. Would this even be going on if the United States wasn't involved and funding, it seems like, both sides?
Right.
Yep. It's pure insanity.
Well, and yet we still have millions of people that will support this administration. You vote for Joe Biden, you vote for Hamas. There is no in between.
No.
There is no gray area.
Not anymore.
It's not a, well, I support him because I don't support that, but nope, you do support that. You give him the vote. You give him the okay to do what he's doing, continue it, in fact, ramp it up. If he were to win, there's no telling how far this goes over the next 4 years.
You know, he was elsewhere at church, and the pro-Hamas protesters were even louder. And then the church started going, 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years.
Yeah.
And he was the exact same, coward.
Yeah.
As he was in the last audio cut that we played.
Right.
And you and I looked at each other and just said, what the hell is the DNC going to look like this year?
Oh, my gosh. Because they're not going to, the protesters aren't going to put up with being kept at bay outside a couple of blocks away. They'll make their way inside. They'll find their way inside. I guarantee you that. Well, because many of them are actually part of the party.
Yeah.
It's not the days where, okay, the protesters are the fringe over the... No, the fringe is the party.
It's mainstream now. The radicalism of the left is mainstream within the Democratic Party.
You'll hear what you used to hear. You go back, I don't know, 30 years, the type of thing that you would hear by the picketers, 3-4 blocks away, is going to be now in primetime speeches at the DNC, I'm convinced, this year. The radical items, I'm just waiting. You and I have been saying for a couple of years, what does the DNC look like? What does the convention look like in the summer of 24?
Well,
and more and more and more and more, I'm convinced that I am right. It is going to be radical ideas every single night in primetime
the
speeches.
protesters may not be able to make it in, but the delegates are just as radical as the protesters.
That's my point.
Many of the delegates
are the same. It's the same. The radical left is the party.
Exactly.
And they're going to be and the radicals in the party that get primetime speeches will have radical ideas, and it's going to be every night in prime time. I can't wait. And then Thursday night, how does Biden wrap it up? Oh, man.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, we had talked about an hour ago about America First versus America Last. Oh, no,
Yeah.
we talked about it this hour. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we've, with Biden, basically, you should come out and just say America Last
Right.
on all the policies, which they create the problems that hurt America, as we have articulated many times before. But now I have more evidence of how the left does not want to be America First, but America Left. Excuse me, last, not left. Well, America left last. America left, America last, same difference.
Yeah. The American left is America last.
And plus some really incredible and interesting polling out there as to where the American public is going right now. And RFK Jr.'s VP choice.
Yeah, wow.
We told you so.
Yeah.
We told you so.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you guys don't understand. RFK Jr. How old are you? 5? You don't know his past? You don't know where he stood his entire life? You actually believe that he is conservative in some way? Sorry, I ain't falling for it.
Nope.
And with his VP pick, now the Democratic Party is really scared.
Oh, my
because,
gosh, they panicked yesterday.
Right, that's the notion to the Democratic Party that I'm RFK Jr. and my administration is going to be far left.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right. We said this last hour.
Yeah.
Biden and the Democrats, they want America last. They do not want America first.
True.
And here's a story to back it up. Salt Lake City Tribune. America First Credit Union responds to Utah Royals jersey controversy. So I first saw this. I'm reading this article going, what do they have about what's their beef with a credit union? That's what I'm thinking the whole time.
Yeah.
What's their beef
Right.
with a credit union?
Right.
I mean, what did they? I'm looking for a scandal from America First Credit Union. Supporters from the Chicago Red Stars and North Carolina Courage have made statements against Utah's jerseys. Supporter groups from 2 National Women's Soccer League teams have come out against the jersey sponsor of the Utah Royals. Chicago Local 134 and the Uproar, supporter groups for the Chicago Red Stars and North Carolina Courage, respectively, have taken issue with America First Credit Union, the jersey front sponsor of the Royals, as well as the naming rights sponsor of the stadium where the real Salt Lake and Royals play. Why?
Why?
It's like, well, what's going on here? It's becoming an issue that has the state's governor rolling his eyes, fans split, and the credit union having to explain their history. The Uproar released a statement Friday in advance of the game between the Royals and the Courage, criticizing the organization for partnering with a company that uses America First as a phrase.
How dare they?
See, we can't make this stuff up. You guys are exaggerating it. Liberals don't. Liberals are for America first. They're not for America last. Another example.
Yep.
While we support all the Utah players and their fans, we can't stand by without mentioning the front of the jersey sponsor, America First Credit Union, of our opponent. The phrase America First has a long history rooted in racism, fascism, and hateful ideology.
Boo, America! America last! That's it. If Trump wins, I'm moving to Gaza. Just waiting for that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You're pro-Hamas.
Hamas first.
Right.
Wow. That's it. You'll have no controversy then. Well, you
Right.
may in Utah.
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, man, seriously.
I don't know. Let me go through this again here. Let me just see. Okay, let me just see. Okay, the phrase America First has a long history rooted in racism, fascism, and hateful ideology.
Uh-huh.
Well, America First, when you think America First, what do you think?
Uh,
I think America First by number one. What's America? America is the Constitution, correct?
yeah.
America is the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
What makes that's what it is.
Yeah.
America is the people that support that ultimate law of the Constitution of the United States. When I say America First, that's what I'm talking about. Tell me what part of that is racist. Tell me what part of that is fascism. Tell me what part of the Constitution of the United States, probably still, not probably, still today, the most pure governmental document produced in the history of humankind. That's what I mean when I talk about America
Right.
First. I don't know
Sure.
what you mean. That's what I mean.
Well, the part I have a problem with is credit union.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I read it, that shows you how our minds think so differently. I was like, what do they have against a credit union?
Yeah.
No, it's the America First.
Yeah. It's because when I see America First Credit Union, it's like, okay, well, they at some point they picked a name. Back in the day, I had an account at a community credit union. They just pick a name. First National Bank. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to Third National Bank. They choose a name and they go with it, and it's never a consideration for me, but the left can't leave anything alone. I'm offended.
And it's like readers added context on X to respond. The word first, appearing in the credit union and local bank names, often alongside a geographic name, is common in the United States.
Uh-huh.
AFCU has no political affiliation or ties to any political candidates associated with the current America First movement. It predates them.
Yeah, imagine.
But
that.
again, here's the thing. This is where you stop it dead. And this is where you have to respond. Who are officially the bigots and racists in the United States by their own admission?
Democratic Party.
Democratic Party with identity politics. They judge people by groups and not individuals. We don't do that.
No.
Trump doesn't do that.
No, they have to edit what he says to make it even seem like he says it.
Exactly. So the attack should be, excuse me, you practice identity politics.
Yeah.
We talked about, we played the audio cut from Bill Maher about identity politics and what they're doing. The racism, and we talked about this in the summer of 2020 when it came out. Well, police departments are systemically racist. You don't believe in systemic racism. You don't believe it's been institutionalized. And we shocked people when we said, oh, absolutely racism exists in this country.
We can show you where it is.
It's institutionalized. It is systemic.
Yep.
And where does it exist? Right there in the Democratic Party that admits they play identity politics.
Right.
What did Stacey Abrams say one time? Identity politics works for us.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It works for us.
We need to keep it up.
Right.
I think it was I don't know. It was either 2020 or at the midterm in 22. I can't remember. But yeah, she was. No, look, we need to keep doing this.
Right.
I mean, I didn't win, but it's working for me. It's working for a career otherwise.
And if you wish to see the racism of the Democratic Party, go back to the All-Star game in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the election integrity law that Biden lied about and said it was Jim Crow.
Yeah.
2.0.
Right.
That it was just like Jim Crow. Well, anyone could look at that law and say, got nothing to do. They don't even. The two don't even relate. Yet you had major corporations pull out because of the lie. So Biden made a racist lie. He lied about an election law that the vast majority of people supported what was in it.
Yeah.
And support voter ID,
Yep.
which the Democrats are now back to saying that's racist when you see minorities don't believe that it's racist. He lied about an election law in order to get people to hate each other based on the color of their skin by telling a lie.
Yep.
Well, that's what the KKK and the white Aryan nations do.
Exactly.
They lie in order to create hatred. That's what the leader of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, did in Georgia. If you want a specific example of the blatant racism of the Democratic Party. And we know they practice identity politics, critical race theory.
Yep.
Race is racist.
Yep. Yep.
And it's that simple. And so fight back. Don't sit there when they sit there and say America first. What do you mean America first is racist? The Democrat, if you want, and if they're going to bring it up, you bring it up. What is the most racist organization in the history of the United States that had more power, more money to support slavery, Jim Crow laws, and now identity politics? The Democratic Party.
Full stop.
Go ahead, let the readers put context in that.
Right. Yep. It's on full display. They're proud of it at every turn. There's really no denying it anymore. And you're going to see more of it at the DNC this summer. I really look. It's the conventions. They make the news during that cycle. It depends on who the candidates are. They can make a bit of news, and then Thursday night usually gets all the attention because then the nominee is up there, and they're doing their thing. But I think it is right now. It's more critical to watch the DNC if you have any questions at all. Now, some will say, well, we need to watch the Republican Party. Look, I've got concerns with the Republican Party. No doubt. I think the Republican Party needs to be concerned about performing as well as Trump. If he performs well, they need to be right up there with him. Each candidate needs to be standing on their own so that the party, if they win, is strong. They're not there just because of the down ballot. Aside from that, the radicalism on the left will be on full display.
Well, again, when the Republican Party should have been pounding on this for the last 10 years on identity politics, and they haven't. We have, if you've been a long-time listener to the show. By the way, to zero negative feedback.
Right.
At least for me. Yeah. I don't know about you, but zero negative feedback. When we point out and go point by point on it, we get zero negative feedback. Mm-hmm. It's obvious.
Yep.
And every Democrat knows that racism has been institutionalized inside of their party. Every Democrat listening right now knows that because that's what identity politics is. Yep. And we're not the ones, Bill Maher brought it up. Bill Maher's is as liberal as you can, old school liberal as you can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sees it. Well, my God, it's blatantly racist. He knows it. He did a whole monologue. We played it earlier this week.
Yep.
He did a whole monologue on identity politics. What's his name? Tim Ryan ran against Nancy Pelosi and said, we got to stop the identity politics. We have to stop judging people by groups and judge them as individuals. The Democratic Party owns that. We told you what Biden did, just one example of what Biden did when it came to the Georgia election law, which now none of the left are protesting, and it's the same law.
Yeah.
So they used it to create racial hatred between people of color based on a lie. That's what the KKK and white Aryan nations does.
Right.
And that's what they've done in the past. So don't throw at me that America First is racist. The Democratic Party is racist. And the Republicans should be pounding this each and every day, just as we do on the show, and articulate why they are. And you're going to convince independents. That's what you need to do. You're already convincing independents, and you're communicating horribly, Republicans.
Right. Imagine if you got on point.
'Cause
Imagine if their message, which is simple to do.
the majority of America is figuring it out anyway on their own, but doesn't mean that you don't help yourself by communicating effectively what your message is and what their message is on the other side.
Right. Imagine what you could do if your message was actually
Yeah.
on point.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You and I were talking about, since we just mentioned how Republicans should be campaigning, I think one of the other things that they should bring up, and it should be a major campaign theme, is basically would be something to the level of Democrats caused the problem. Biden caused the problem. And then explain it in a 30-second commercial. We're not in a day and age anymore where we're talking about political parties that can solve the problems that we organically face.
Right.
We're talking about a party, the Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden, that actually has created the problem at the border, created the inflation that we see today by the economic policies that they have voted for and the spending that they have done. And just go through it that way. You can make a ton of 30-second spots saying, and I'm not happy with they caused it. I'm trying to think of another way to phrase it. They caused the problems. But whatever the phrase would be, I'm still working on what the phrase would be. They need to promote the fact that this isn't about parties that can solve the problem. You want parties that can solve the problem, but just electing us solves a ton of the problems because the Democratic Party and Joe Biden created the problems. Maybe that's how they created the problems.
Mm-hmm.
We solve problems. They create problems. You take that, and again, you can mix that all in together and produce ads with it, but you need to promote that day in and day out.
Right. All the problems America is facing right now were created by the Democratic Party and President Joe Biden.
Yep. The major problems we see today all have that.
Yep.
Let's go to Mark in Carson City, Nevada. Mark, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi.
Good to hear from y'all.
Thanks.
Hey, real quickly, the first thing you do in any society is obviously you get your food, your water, your shelter, all that stuff. But force protection, protecting yourself and protecting your humans is like one of the most important things you do. And, flooding your country with unknowns and flying them in and not doing that and then trying to take away the guns from legal citizens, and it makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand what is going on here. I mean, what is the Democrat Party? What are they now? I don't even understand. It used to be where they were a little more socialist than us, and they had a couple other items that were different. They are alien to me. I can't even define them anymore. What are they? I would like to hear it from you guys because I can't define them. Can you define them anymore?
Well,
I mean, I know you guys all joke about we're doomed. I am worried about that now.
Radical.
I never felt that way completely.
Well,
Radical is how I would define them.
I would say radical and self-destructive is what they are. Now, why they are is a tough one to figure out. Mark, I'll tell you this, that when I first became a talk show host in 1989, Democrats and liberals would debate you on the issues. They don't debate on the issues anymore. There's no debate. And so you can't even, from the average Democratic voter, find out how they think. Any communication, if I get, which is rare, but if I get communication from a Democrat, it's simply cursing at me. Right, Eric? I mean, it's cursing. Mm-hmm. They don't want to discuss the issue. You're just blah, 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 blah. So it's very tough to figure out how the Democratic voter is thinking these days. Now, more of them, and we'll get to some polling coming up following the bottom of the hour, more of them are on the right track. They're seeing what their party is. But again, I would say self-destruction. What was the other one you brought up?
Radical.
Radical and self-destructive is what they are. And you cannot, it's very tough to understand why they do what they do. I would say radical, self-destructive, and virtue signaling. They really don't like to get into the minutia. Most Democrats I know don't want to get into the minutia of any single issue at all. It's simply enough to say that what I'm doing is the right thing to do, and you ask why, and if you ask why, boom. Look, the liberal transgender radical movement, that's a case right there. When you actually, as Tom Cotton did a couple of years ago, asked a Berkeley professor, well, explain to me this transgender stuff. I mean, how does this work? And she said, that's transphobic. You can't ask that question. What do you mean? I'm asking a question about why you think the way you do. Yes, but you can't ask that question because somebody will commit suicide if you do, is the answer.
Right. Just for asking questions.
Yes.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight to one of our great radio stations. So, Mark, the last caller, you sit and wonder, you go, well, how can Democrats think this way when everything is so self-destructive? And how did they get to this point? Well, it's easy how the Democratic Party got to this point. They wanted power.
Yeah.
And you get power, and it's been successful for them. It's been a successful political philosophy based on things that don't work and promises and hope of things that when they hit reality don't work. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. And so the Democrats, by coming out and saying, you're a victim, and these people are oppressors, people like to be called victim if there's cash and benefits that come along with it.
Right.
If you believe that you're a victim and somebody's telling you you're a victim, well, then you'll vote for them because they're telling you we're going to take care of you because you're a victim and these people over here are oppressors.
Yep.
And so you can... One of the most perfect examples, as we like to bring up, it's one of the most recent, was Bernie Sanders after Occupy Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that really came out of Occupy Wall Street was banks are responsible and should pay for college loans.
Right.
It's like, well, the schools promised you it. The banks simply lent you the money.
Right.
But no, you got to go after the banks. And then remember, that got ridiculous. Remember, only deal with small banks, only deal with small banks. And then we found Occupy Wall Street had their own account with a major bank.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
We couldn't find a good small banks. Really? You would think you could, because you preached about it all the time.
So to me, it's not complicated. Most people do things that are in their self-interest so they can gain more power. What it's done to the Democratic Party is a lot of politicians have been able to have careers for a significant period of time based on something that is false. And a ton of different things that are false. We see it today. And that's why we say the biggest threat, And unfortunately, the biggest threat to Democrats should be Republicans, but it's not. It's reality. They can continue to spend, and inflation's going to continue to skyrocket, and you're going to feel it. You're not passing it on to your children and you are still passing on to your children, grandchildren and grandchildren, but now you're being hurt. Every American family has been hurt by the reckless spending that the majority of that has been from Democrats.
Yeah. Right.
Has been pushed by Democrats. Not that Republicans aren't to blame, especially, as we like to say, starting in 2006, it seemed, when they decided to somehow take that move, or 2005. I always look at the benchmark of Tom DeLay saying, Republican conservatives need to shut up. We've cut spending as much as we can cut. And at that day, we went, well, okay, bye.
Right.
If that's where you're going to go, bye. So anytime you promote somebody as a victim, you're going to pick up a significant number of people out there. Now, the problem with that is, we did one of the studies that showed liberals are more depressed than conservatives. And we went, well, yeah, duh. Of course they are.
Right.
If somebody's telling you're a victim and you can't make it and your life depends on what somebody else does, you're going to be a pretty ticked off and sad person.
Yep.
When you're told, well, if we give you this and give you that and give you that, well, that's going to give you a great life, and it doesn't. And when you aren't in charge of your own life, when you don't believe you're in charge of your own life, how the heck can you be happy?
Well, and the way that they used to promise things, look, we're going to give you, we're going to give you, we're going to give you, we're going to provide, we're going to provide, we're going to provide. And now it's we're going to punish, 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 punish. We're going to go after, we're going to go after, we're going to go after. And it implies, that you'll get a benefit from it, but it really isn't the point. They don't care about you. They never have, even when they were promoting the freebies. And it's not so much the freebies anymore. It's the corporations are bad. We're going after, as you mentioned, even with Bernie back in the day, going after, well, we got to go after the banks when it comes to college loans. Well, they just lent you the money. They didn't make the promises. The schools made the promises. But, of course, liberals can't do that, especially when they would like to incorporate the all of these universities into the public school system and basically make it grade 1 through 16. And this, which some of us did anyway, without going to college.
Well,
this is the problem. This is the question we have had. What are they promoting they will do? What are they promoting they will do for this country, which is their, in turn, their citizens, their constituents? They're not. They're promoting what they will punish, what they will go after, what they will shut down.
When you have the philosophy, and we're seeing it now, that you have victims versus oppressors, and then you find out you need to create more victims. When you create more victims, you have to create more oppressors, where eventually the people you were calling victims 15 years ago have become the oppressors. Think about the most insane example of that is the radical transgender movement. And if you want to focus on one particular person as the perfect example, it would be Martina Navratilova, who came out decades ago.
Right.
Decades upon decades ago, she came out and she was viewed as a hero of LGBT, LGB.
Yes.
She was viewed as a hero for coming out and moving gay rights forward. Now, she is viewed as an oppressor. Why? She's viewed as an oppressor because she says that men should not be able to dictate to women what defines their sex.
Right.
And men should not compete against women. So now she moved from the leader of the oppressed, a leader of the victims, to a leader of the oppression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just, but that's what's happening across the board. And then if you don't agree with them, as you see, boom. And then you see what's happening now. Look, the reason that Trump is where he is today, the leader of the pack of the candidates, is because so many of his supporters and more supporters coming on is because they look at it and they go, the American legal system has gone to hell.
Yeah.
And now they're just making up crimes to go after someone. And if they can do that to Trump and possibly bankrupt him or jail him, they can come after you.
And this is what I would add to your message. They created the problem to the extent that now the American justice system is in shambles. Not only do you have to worry about the bad guys coming after you, you have to worry about the good guys coming after you.
No, that's a great point. No, that's a good point. It's a great point.
Yeah. And at every turn, American families are sitting and wondering, how do I get out of this? I don't feel safe in my own neighborhood. I don't feel safe in my own country. I don't have the purchasing power, so I don't feel stable in my own life because I don't know how I'm going to make rent and groceries. And the radicalism that's going on, I don't know what they're teaching my kids, but I know it's not right. And every single day I'm dealing with something. I talked to a young man. He was 40 years old. And he said, we had this thing with, one of the administrators in our school, and then they just had to come out and they did this preachy thing to my kids that had nothing to do with, in fact, he's got young children, grade school children, and they were talking to them about things of adult nature because of somebody in the school administrator's office. And he said, if they want to talk to parents about that at, whatever, a PTA meeting or one-on-one with the principal and parents or the teachers and parents, then okay. But they decided to have an assembly, and they decided that they were going to talk to kids about these items that kids don't understand to begin with at that age. And he said, I can't do that. I can't support that kind of school system. And he's looking to move. This is somebody who moved here from California, by the way, and has lived here for several years now, loves living in the state of Texas, but still sees in parts of Texas that liberal agenda at work because in public schools, it's kind of hard to get away from.
Jill Biden was giving and again, what a perverted human being she is for lying about the fact of having age-appropriate content for children.
Yeah.
She somehow compared that to the Nazis.
Right.
Well, what type of perverted mind do you have to try to make that analogy that that age-appropriate materials for young children is somehow related to the Nazis? You're attempting to get what many parents believe is perverted obscenity into the minds of children that don't even understand it, and you're trying to sell that by saying if you don't agree with that children should be able to read that without parents' permission, that you're a Nazi? What type of perverted mind thinks that way, as Jill Biden did the other day? What type of perverted minds attempt to sell that age-appropriate material somehow meant don't say gay in public in general between adults?
Right.
Who is making what type of perverted mind when the goal is to keep age-appropriate materials to children, ensure they have that, not adults, children,
Yeah.
and you come out and say they want to ban books for everybody, knowing that's a lie. Why do you do that? What type of perversion, what type of perverted evil person are you to promote that falsehood when it's all about what we do for the children, and you lie about it to make it seem like it's some type of book burning for everybody, and these books aren't allowed in society.
Right.
You do that for some type of perverted evil reason that I can't figure out. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
That one I don't know, except they're perverted evil people.
Yeah.
Which exist out there, as we know.
Right.
And so, you look at it, and I would say the Democrats viewed that they could stay in power. It's about power for the Democrats. They understood the pathology of dependency can work for a significant period of time, make the people dependent, tell them that their lives are hopeless, tell them their lives are hopeless because this person over here is making it hopeless, make that lie, play the class warfare, and we can be in power. And they have been in power for a significant period of time to get us to the situation where we are today, and now they go full insane. The full insanity of why you see what's going on today, for example, trying to promote the fact that a man can be a woman, I have no idea where that comes from, except for the fact that it's some type of perversion that exists that encompasses everything else that they're trying to sell with the insane LGBTQ leftist movement.
And with children, it's about indoctrination. And let's start at the age of 5.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. And to Mark, who called us and said, but I just don't understand, why it doesn't make sense where Democrats are going. It actually does when you look at the power angle that Democrats wanted and the pathology of dependency, making people dependent on the government and hopeless in a way that you can't make it. And repeating that over and over and over and over again, they believe has served them well. And it's serving them well still today. They still have a significant number of people that will vote for them. This election is no means a given to Trump or the Republicans at all. And that's why we have always stated that we have no idea why Republicans, when they have all the issues behind them, cannot communicate more effectively. But are the people coming around? We've got a few polls here to tell you about coming up following the top of the hour on issues.
Yeah.
And where the American public stands
Very
next.
interesting stuff in those
Isn't
polls.
it? Yeah, I know.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, some interesting polling out there, all relating to the caller we had last hour, Mark, who was just, saying, at least I might not have agreed with him, but I sort of knew where the Democrats were coming from.
Yeah.
Now I have no idea. I mean, it's just you have no idea. It's just like completely foreign. Being an American citizen, where they stand on the issues it's pure insanity. And you're just trying to make sense of it. Why do they believe these things? As we said, for the Democratic Party, it started out a long time ago. This was their search for power. Well, now that they had promised all these things and said, if we spend all this money, there are no negative consequences. Well, now we're at the point where the Republican Party can make a solid case that, look, vote for us. We don't create the problems.
Yeah, right.
Just voting for us is a win because we won't create the problems. Democrats create the problems, and you go through inflation, you go through the border, you can go through a ton of different other things, electric vehicles, the grid, electricity. Look, you can make a great case in California. Say, look at your electricity prices.
Yeah.
Here's what we pay here.
Right.
You're paying that because that's what Democrats have done to you, and you pound that. Now, is it making is the country coming to the realization that Democrats create problems? You know, are they willing
On their own,
Right.
without the Republican Party having to point it out, you mean? Are Americans coming to that conclusion?
Well, whether they
based on
whether
the
they got it
situation?
whether they got from a Republican pointing it out or not, are they moving in a direction that is less pro-Democrat, I guess you would say? Well, here we have it right here. Republican voters see it. Independent voters see it. Now, even half of Democrat voters agree that the news media are simply regurgitating President Joe Biden's talking points, a new survey reveals. In a poll of U.S. likely voters conducted March 18th through the 20th, Rasmussen asked the following question. How likely is it that the major news media's political coverage is dictated by talking points from the Biden administration? Nearly two-thirds, 63% of all voters, say it is at least somewhat likely that Biden is dictating the contents of political news being fed to Americans, including 42% who consider it to be very likely. 61% of Republican voters say it's very likely that Biden is dictating the news, and more than 3 in 4, 78%, call it at least somewhat likely. That's Republicans now.
Yeah.
Independent voters also see Biden pulling the media's puppet strings, with 61% calling it likely and 42% very likely. But even supporters of Biden's talking points, Democratic voters, see the news coverage as being skewed in their favor, with half, 50%, agreeing that the media is at least somewhat likely to be basically the talking points of Biden. 25% of voters say it's very likely, Democratic voters, that Biden is dictating the news that they receive. Still, Democratic voters don't seem overly concerned that the media are pushing their political propaganda. We have told you that.
Yeah.
We've told you that. It's significant. But the only reason the Democratic Party can succeed like this is because so many voters still support them. They all don't. There may be 10 to 15 to 20% that don't. It may be that quarter, 25% that say it's very, very likely. But the fact is, that's all it takes to lose.
Yeah.
And so the insanity that's being promoted by Democrats on the national level, because it's more on the national level, it's on the state level, less at the local level, especially in red states that have blue cities. Not that it isn't still pushed, but the insanity isn't as great. I know. I actually live in a Democratic town.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. And my precinct is a Democrat precinct that I live in. Now, don't blame me. Don't say, Gary, why did you move in to a Democrat precinct? The Democrats moved in after I was already there.
Yeah, virtually nobody was there back in the day. It was brand new.
Yeah, there was nobody. I looked behind me, there was nothing. It was all fields. Now it's all homes.
Right.
There it is. Still, Democratic voters don't seem overly concerned that media are pushing a political propaganda. While 60% of all voters agree that media truly are the enemy of the people, 30% strongly, 54% of Democratic voters disagree, 36% strongly. Okay, so that means then you have what? They do not continue. Okay, that's the article. Thought they'd continue with more stats saying, all right, well, then it was at 25% believe then. Is it close to that? Because you got 54%, which leaves you with 46% still that either don't know or believe it is.
Right. Yeah.
But they don't list that here in the poll. And so that's incredible. But look, you and I have said it for years. Actually, part of the problem with Biden is Biden isn't giving the liberal media as many coherent talking points as they'd like.
Well, he's really not giving them any talking points. If you think about it, the liberal media under Biden is having to make up their own talking points, which is unique for a liberal administration. And we've talked about this. They show up every day wanting those talking points. They don't get them for whatever reason, and they have to make up their own.
And here's how the polls have moved. And this is, again, I think the American public, including a significant portion of Democrats, that may be related to the people like, a Jonathan Turley or a Barry Weiss. I won't say Turley because Turley hasn't said he'd vote Republican.
Right.
But when Barry Weiss came out and said Trump was right and he could get my vote, it was like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
A majority of voters say that they would vote for former President Donald Trump over Joe Biden if a jury convicts Trump in the documents case. Now, that's changed over the last few months.
Yeah.
That is the Harvard Capps Harris poll. The poll asked respondents who they would vote for if a jury convicted Trump of crimes related to his handling of classified presidential documents. 54% would vote for Trump, 46% would vote for Biden. That's more than Trump's lead if you don't ask the question.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Eric and I are just looking at each other like, where did that come from? No wonder Trump's out there promoting it every day.
Right.
53% of voters said Trump would not be convicted of any alleged crimes, while another 54% said Trump's legal troubles are politically motivated. In the classified documents case, okay, I know that here. I'm just trying to look at the poll numbers here. All right. They just have those poll numbers. And a clear majority. Here we have another poll. McLaughlin and Associates. Breitbart had this story. A clear majority, 56%, believe Joe Biden is looking to win the 2024 election by jailing his opponent, Donald Trump. The question asked by McLaughlin and Associates, and it's interesting how they're asking these questions.
Right.
There isn't a lot of wiggle room here.
Right.
The one on the documents case, not a lot of wiggle room. They're bringing up everything you need to know in that. It's really not skewed at all. And this one asks the question this way. President Trump has been indicted on a total of 91 counts by supporters of Joe Biden and his Justice Department. If convicted of these charges, do you think that Joe Biden wants to stop President Trump from winning the election by putting him in jail? 56% yes, 30% no. The other 14% would be, I don't know.
Who's Biden? Who's Trump? The 14%.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh?
Biden, who's he? Trump? I don't recognize that name.
I make it a point not to watch the news.
Independents agreed by a margin of 50 to 33%. Wow. A plurality of moderates agreed, 48 to 32%. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been a change over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
From what I can see. Let me see, other questions in the poll indicate that the country is souring more and more on Biden. And what he and his supporters have launched on Trump. Since Donald Trump leads Joe Biden for president in many polls, one question asked, do you think that these investigations and indictments by the Biden Justice Department are being done to stop Donald Trump from running for president again? Back in July of last year, 49% said yes, while 40% said no. Today, the number, 52% yes, 38% for no. A similar movement in responses to this question. Do you agree or disagree that Joe Biden's Justice Department should stop targeting Donald Trump and interfering with the upcoming presidential election, and Biden should let the voters decide who the next president should be? Back in July, 54% agreed that Biden should stop interfering in the election via lawfare, while 38% disagreed. Today, 58 to 34. 58 to 34. Do you believe or disagree that there is a double standard and bias at Joe Biden's Department of Justice, the FBI, and the IRS, where they continue to target Republicans like Donald Trump, but these same groups go easy and give sweetheart deals to Joe Biden and his family members when the evidence shows Joe Biden and his family have failed to pay their taxes, taken bribes, and extorted money from our enemies such as Communist China and Russia? Now, that's a pretty loaded question.
Yeah.
Biden lost 56 to 41 on that case. You would think that a liberal would be furious, or even an independent, by the way that question was asked, would you not?
Right. Yeah. Just the methodology of the question.
Yep. Wow. Finally, how much of a role would you say Joe Biden has played in the indictments of former President Donald Trump? 58% say Biden played a major, played a major role. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So there you go.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Well, look, there are things that are, and we have said, have been so obvious, where at some point everything else falls away except for those items that are, it's, tell me what's not affecting Americans right now of all the major issues. And then you see this attempt. It's almost like a bit. All the different cases against Trump. Well, former President Trump is in court today. No, not that case. The other case. No, not that case either. The other case. I actually saw that. Was it CNN that did the report? Having to explain the different cases, and they were kind of laughing. And the laughter wasn't, oh my gosh, this guy is so corrupt, like you would expect from liberal media. It was really kind of, this is getting stupid. Because they know it. All of these cases that are brought against him, and it's not political. He was impeached for making a phone call to an incoming president of Ukraine saying, we want you to follow up on your campaign promise and make sure you take care of all the corruption that's going on. And that
mention the Bidens.
And mention the Bidens in it. That spurred the phone call.
Yeah.
The Biden Justice Department and states, Democrats in states, are going after the former president, and nobody on the left is screaming impeachment. Impeach Trump for making a phone call and just mentioning Biden. But if Biden goes after Trump and all these prosecutors in all these blue areas are going to go after Trump repeatedly, There's no mention of, no, people stop and look at it. It's become ridiculous. The left has become fully just absolutely radical when it comes to every single thing they're doing right now. They really don't have any middle ground. It's full on, 100% at every turn.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We got to get to RFK Jr. Almost forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the left not happy. Left now starting to get scared since he picked a very, 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 very far left vice president.
Well,
candidate.
and think about this. The message that you send when you pick your Veep, it's long been the case. With any candidate, we don't have to go back any further than 2012 when Paul Ryan was brought on board the Romney ticket to bring conservative street cred. That's so laughable now. Oh, my gosh, what were we thinking? But when you... When you see, and I say we, but I was not part of the Romney ticket, to be clear. But when you see that, you're sending a message. You're sending, RFK Jr. was sending a message to Democrats, vote for me. How was he not?
I know.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Independent presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. announced Tuesday that attorney and tech entrepreneur Nicole Shanahan will be his vice presidential running mate heading into the November general election. She has a long history of donating to Democrats and far left-leaning causes, including supporting President Biden in his 2020 election bid before switching to Kennedy when he launched his own run for the Democratic nomination last year. By the way, her saying that as a woman, that I switched from Biden, that's what they want.
Yeah.
I was a Biden supporter. I'm no longer a Biden supporter. That is part of what they're attempting to do here. She supported President Biden before switching to Kennedy. She also has given to other Democrats. She has donated to Marianne Williamson, Buttigieg, threw $150,000 behind far-left, insane Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon's 2020 election bid. So that's all you really need to be told about her.
And now we'll have money to power the RFK Jr. campaign.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so that's, I think, combined with everything, I mean, the biggest problem Democrats have with it is that, and I think I saw the story where it was RFK's sister even said, yeah, this is going to be a problem. Because you look at the landscape here now, and this does change everything. We were wondering, look, if he was going to go with Jesse Ventura. I don't know where that story came from. I mean, I don't know where that thought came from. I know where the story came from. I don't know where that thought came from. But eventually you get down to, and it was going to be the reality of it. And this reality yesterday had the Democratic Party, it seemed like, in unison, all screaming, liberals all screaming at once, oh my gosh, this is going to hurt. Because we look at the possibilities of what RFK Jr. could do, how many points he could take. Well, he only has to take a few. And if he's taking them primarily from Biden, then the Democrats are right to be afraid. And with her money now being a big, and he also has other money. I mean, for what he's done, his war chest isn't nothing. So he has a little bit of money. He's certainly got a long game now. So that's going to be a problem for Democrats. This is going to be a problem for Joe Biden.
The Trump super PAC, which isn't Trump, by the way, said Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a far-left radical that supports reparations, backs the Green New Deal, and wants to ban fracking. It's no surprise he would pick a Biden donor leftist as his running mate. That came from MAGA. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, and then the story came out here yesterday. Democrats appear to be in a panic mode as they scramble to save President Biden's reelection hopes from the threat of independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign. A call hosted by the Democratic National Committee revealed Tuesday afternoon. A call with members of the press took place immediately after Kennedy announced Nicole Shanahan as his vice presidential running mate at a rally in Oakland that included Representative Robert Garcia, the Democrat of California, Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis, Michigan State Senator Mallory McNamara, all who fretted that Kennedy would likely destroy any chance of Biden being reelected. And it's the Shanahan, because it's the Shanahan putting it in there. Because I know I've seen people that claim they're conservative saying, I'm going to give Robert Kennedy Jr. a chance. It's like, what, you believe what he's telling you? You're buying into this crap so easily?
Right.
But now that he's picked somebody who was this far left, it's going to be a signal to any Republican supporter out there no, this is electing Robert Kennedy Jr. is not going to be any type of even moderate conservative government.
Right.
So we're doing everything in our power to get President Biden and Vice President Harris reelected. It's critical that we take seriously every possible obstacle to that goal. And let me be clear, that's exactly what RFK Jr. is in this election. He is a spoiler. McNamara agreed, saying it was important for her to be on the call to share how horrifying this campaign is and what it really means on the ground in Michigan. Him being in the race means that there is a greater likelihood that Donald Trump will become president again, which right now there is a greater chance, especially with putting Shanahan on there. Look, I'm just thinking about the campaign. One of the things you notice is, Biden still every weekend's on vacation. Is he going to be out campaigning, or is he going to have Kamala Harris doing all of his campaigning for her on the weekends?
Well, I don't know. Look, long term, he just doesn't have the stamina. It's not there, regardless of what they're trying to tell you at the White House. He just doesn't have it. And that's not going to improve. In fact, it's only going to be in further decline as we get closer and closer to November. So I'm guessing it's not going to be just Kamala Harris. I think it's going to be any and every surrogate that you can get out there. So Jill Biden is going to have to go a different direction than her husband, and Kamala Harris is going to have to make a separate stop. Chris Christie will be out there campaigning for Biden.
We forgot no labels.
No labels.
Boy, they've been quiet the last week, haven't they?
Yeah.
Any scuttlebutt at all?
I haven't.
No labels.
Seen. Oh, there was a funny story.
Out of sight, out of mind.
I have to go back and find it because I read it while I was on the road last week. About no labels, and it's there was a couple of weekends ago, not this past weekend before. Someone had, I think it was a story at National Review, and they had a picture of Lieberman. But the look on Lieberman's face, he looks so defeated. I mean, he just looks so defeated. And it was a couple of other key people from the No Labels thing, sitting beside him, and they all three just looked miserable.
Oh.
They just looked miserable.
Just reading this here. Is No Labels an elaborate grift with no candidate? Their secrecy is telling.
Why isn't it?
No Labels has gone from noble intentions to shady chicanery. They've spent months spouting a just trust us message while showing us no reason to trust them. This is USA Today.
Yeah.
Chris Brennan. In the 2 weeks since the group's intentionally unidentified 800 delegates supposedly voted in a private virtual meeting to move forward with the plan to find a candidate, a steady string of potential contenders have told No Labels, no thanks. Then there's been the concerning migration in messaging from No Labels, which has been pushing two key talking points since last year. It does not want to be the spoiler that helps President Donald Trump defeat President Joe Biden, and the group will only field a candidate if they're likely to win the election. Critics, and there are many in a growing chorus of concern, suggest that the folks running No Labels have no direction but are stubbornly, sticking to a plan that will ultimately tilt the field in Trump's favor. And some suggest a financial incentive, six-figure salaries for people pulling the levers of power, and fat contracts for consultants are keeping it all in motion. Mm-hmm. Is No Labels really a lucrative grift posing as a civic exercise? It's starting to look that way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Fighting for freedom to choose a president. Yet they can't even choose their own. They can't even choose their own candidate. It's just horrible.
Richard Davis, a former Watergate prosecutor who served in Jimmy Carter's administration, worked with No Labels when it launched in 2010 with a focus on getting legislators to cooperate in a bipartisan manner. Davis wrote an op-ed for The Hill this week saying the group has lost its way and has become a victim of its own arrogance, likely to help Trump win the presidency if it stays his course. Yeah. They're running out of candidates who could be credible, Davis told me. One reason to keep this alive in their mind is to give them bargaining leverage with the Biden campaign to give them something. There's no good reason to keep going. Davis said he thinks No Labels will have to pull the plug if they cannot find a credible candidate. I've heard no names come up. Have you?
I haven't heard anything lately.
Because No Labels keeps its finances secret. This is not helping their cause. Everything's done in secret with No Labels.
Right.
And we're doing it because we want to bring, everything's being done in secret for No Labels because we wish to bring transparency back to the American people.
Yeah. It's insane. But that's the problem. You know, the No Labels Party, the premise of the No Labels Party itself, the premise itself. No labels, well, then what do you stand for?
Yeah, we asked that from day one.
I mean, would you go to a grocery store and buy cans that were just cans on the shelf? without labels to tell you what's in them?
Well, you and I you had said it before. We didn't get into a great discussion on it, but I guess I figured out, I knew where you were going when you said, well, no labels. Is it Liz Cheney now? Because if you if you wish to take from Trump, you would put in Liz Cheney.
Right.
Now, you're not trying to win because you're not going to win with Liz Cheney.
Right.
You're just trying to defeat Trump. Well, who? Because remember, they're the ones that said unity party. What Democrat is going to serve with Liz Cheney?
Yeah, I don't see.
As a vice president.
I don't see any Democrat doing that.
Because when I'm looking right now at it, I'm like, well, the only thing that would make an impact for no labels and give it publicity would be to put Liz Cheney in there. Now, Liz Cheney's not going to get one Democrat vote.
Right.
I don't know how many Republican votes she would get, but that would be, you would look at it now and say, okay, you got Robert Kennedy over here. Clearly, they've gone to the left. He's going to hurt Biden. All right, we need somebody who's going to hurt Trump.
Right.
But that's not going to, well, there isn't going to be a winning ticket. In their delusional minds, they believe they can be the winning ticket, but they don't. I don't believe they believe they could be the winning ticket with Liz Cheney.
Right. No, I think their best hope, if they wanted to do damage to Trump, their best hope, she wouldn't win, but it would have been Nikki Haley. But she's not going to do that. And you're not going to be no labels with Nikki Haley. You're not. The problem is, it goes back to the premise. You're not going to be no labels when you finally get a candidate.
Right. You're going to stand.
The moment you have a candidate and start talking issues and debating and answering questions during interviews, your no labels thing, whether you like it or not, you're going to be labeled.
I'm waiting for an interview with somebody from No Labels saying, look, the longer that we hold out, putting a candidate in and telling you what we believe, the more the American people will support us, because more people than ever are watching Seinfeld clips and bloopers on YouTube, and it's in the hundreds of millions each and every week.
Yeah.
And they're the show about nothing. We're the party about nothing. And that's the constituency that we want voting for us.
Right.
That's the demographic we want.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's like you're going to have to stand for something.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Seriously, when I look at No Labels, they are the epitome of virtue signaling, are they not?
Yeah, they are. They are.
Which they've been, because we're going to. Unity ticket, it's more moral. Unity ticket, left, right, what brings us together? You know something? But when they first were created back, 2009, 2010, that might have been a possibility that you could actually sell.
Well, because things were more in the abstract,
right.
and so you could come up with this more abstract idea of that third party.
Well, what's the compromise? What's the unity on the radical transgender movement or critical race theory?
Where's that middle ground?
There isn't any.
No, there isn't.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.